Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. The aggressive look of the quad-tip exhaust system has been wildly popular with late-model Mustang enthusiasts ever since it first showed up on the 2013 GT500. In my opinion, the wide body of the 2015, it looks even better. If you have a factory Roush or the upcoming GT350, you're getting quad tips from the factory. But if you don't have a normal GT Premium and want that look, today we're going to show you how to convert your Mustang using parts from Roush Performance. This is the Roush quad tip exhaust we're going to be installing on our 2015 Mustang GT today. Roush calls this their passive system. It's actually a very unique system for them. Like all of their systems, it is T304 stainless steel featuring mandrel bends. The muffler is a wide open design. You actually have the dual tips. One of them comes with a block off plate, so you have two options. You can run with just one exhaust open, which gives you a nice aggressive sound but not overly loud, or if you want to go full boat, you take off this plate, put on a pipe like this, that'll flow through, and you actually have four active exhaust systems at the same time, which is going to make the system a lot louder. No matter which direction you choose to go with, you'll have no drone at all. We're going to start by installing the valance, and then we'll show you how to install the exhaust. Before we begin the installation, I want to stress again, this will only fit a Premium GT. If you're not sure if your car is a Premium, simply look at the rear bumper. You have to have a secondary plastic piece separate from the painted surface. If this is all painted one color, it's not a Premium, this kit will not work. As long as you have the black plastic separate piece in here, you're good to go and you begin the installation. For this installation, we need a lift or a jack and jack stands, 1/4-inch ratchet, 7mm socket, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, 3/8 ratchet, 13mm socket, 14mm socket, 15mm socket, 10-inch extension, 17mm wrench, 1/4-inch ratcheting wrench, T20 Torx bit, T25 Torx bit, tape measure, marker, center punch, sawzall, Dremel with cutting wheel, drill, 1/8-inch drill bit, 3/16 drill bit, 1/2-inch drill bit, 17/32 drill bit, safety glasses, scissors, tape, and a file. Before we start on the valance, we're going to cut off the factory exhaust system, get it out of the way to give ourselves a little bit more room. As you can see, we're installing this on a convertible which has additional bracing underneath. Roush provides instructions in their kit for a convertible. The instructions basically state this has to go away. If you're okay with doing that, it will fit a convertible. We're going to suggest probably only using this on a fastback for that reason, because the bracing is there for a reason, but if you're comfortable without using that, it will fit your convertible. Now we're going to measure to cut. You're going to measure from the muffler back past this curve here, and that's where we're going to cut. The measurement provided by Roush is 20.37 for the convertible. Make sure you have the correct measurements because the fastback and convertible actually cut about 2 inches different, so make sure you have the right one. A lot of us, including myself, probably don't have anything to measure 0.37 inches. So what we're going to do, we're going to measure to 1/3. That'll get us in the neighborhood. Then we'll take a second measurement from the curve, and as long as we're close enough, we'll be okay. The Roush measurement provided from the curve is 3.93 inches. Again, kind of hard to measure that. What we're going to do is make sure we're a hair under 4. We should be okay. Yep, should be good right there. Now we can cut. Before I cut, I just want to mention one more thing. This is probably common sense, but because of the measurements and because we're sort of estimating, make sure you estimate on the longer side. Obviously, you can always make the metal shorter if we're too long. We can't add metal, so go a little bit. If you're going to err on the longer side. With the pipes cut, now we're going to remove the 2 bolts for the rear hangers and remove the mufflers. The exhaust off, we can now remove the rear bumper so we can install the quad tip valance. To do so, we're going to start in the trunk. We're going to remove these 4 plastic retainers to remove this, and then move on to the taillights. These plastic retainers, simply remove them by hand by unthreading them. Kind of pull up and out on the panel to remove it. There's 3 nuts that hold each of the taillights in. If you have a car equipped with a factory subwoofer, you do have to remove it to get to the 3rd bolt. To do so, you remove this bolt here. There'll be 3 screws down here to remove this panel, and then 2 more bolts down below. That away, now remove this little plastic plug on the top. Slide this back to access the nut. The taillight loose, now you want to reach down and plug the harness. And we can carefully pull the taillight out. Grab this rubber plug and just pull and bring the harness through with it. Now we're going to repeat the process on the driver's side, which is much easier to do because we don't have the subwoofer in the way. Now we'll move out of the trunk and down to the actual rear quarter panel wheel well section here. We have to remove the well liner to get to the hardware. There's 1 clip located here, and then 2 push pins located here and here. They look like a normal Christmas tree clip, but they're actually a 2-piece clip like the other one. So you want to separate the center to pull out, and then the whole thing will come off. Now you want to sort of just bend the cover in. So we'll put it behind the tire so it's out of the way. The wheel liner out of the way, there's 3 7mm screws you need to remove. 1 downward, and then these 2 facing back. And repeat the process on the other side, and then we're going to move underneath the car. Underneath the car, there's going to be 6 more push pins, 2 on each side, 2 towards the middle, and then 2 bolts in the middle we have to remove. And there's 2 more 7s in the middle. Before we start pulling the cover off, just reach up and disconnect the marker lights and the backup light. Now we're going to remove the last 2 screws on each side. Once that's released, you can pop the bumper free. There's 2 clips right in the corner here behind the taillight. You want to be careful when pulling them off. Once you have it off, disconnect the harness. We have the template taped on so we can drill all the holes to mount the valance to our factory bumper. We did mention our car has backup sensors. By the time you see this video, Roush is actually going to introduce a new valance specifically for a backup sensor car, so the template will be a little bit different and there will be brackets for those as well. For now, we're going to drill the holes and mount the valance the normal way by marking all these and punching them. The 2 outermost holes get drilled with a 1/4-inch drill bit, and then the other 13 across the middle get drilled with a 3/16. Now you want to grab some alcohol. We're going to start by cleaning the surface of the bumper where the valance is going to mount. Then we're going to clean the valance itself so we can install double stick tape. And we're going to clean the valance itself from Roush. Basically going to stick to these ridges right across the middle here. Peel back the white side of the double stick and put that onto the valance. Now on both sides of the valance, you want to grab the studs, you put it in the outer middle hole here, and you thread it in so 1 inch is visible. It's easier to put the nut on, that makes it a lot easier to thread in. Once you have the stud in on both sides, you'll want to basically pull back the red part of the double stick tape and just leave a little flag up here. That'll make it easier to get the tape off once the valance is installed to our bumper. The studs we just installed are going to the 2 larger holes we drilled on the bumper cover. What you want to do is line up the stud on both sides and push it through. If you have it lined up right, then you'll notice that now the valance is sitting flush with our bumper. Once you have both sides through, install one of the supplied washers. Put a nut down, just tighten it down until it's snug. It's not going to get really tight. Once you feel the valance is snug against the bumper, that's going to be tight enough. Now we're going to loosely install the rest of the screws that go across the center. You want to use a punch or a small pick just to make sure they're lined up. With all the fasteners in but not tight, now we're going to remove our double stick tape. We'll grab the little flag that you left there. Put it face down. Once the tape is seated, we're going to go back through and tighten everything down. On the 2 studs on the ends, we're going to put a couple dabs of Loctite on there. Now we're going to prepare the extensions. You want to grab this applied adhesion promoter, just put it on the edge here. And then we're going to install double stick tape. Next, grab the 3 J-clips we removed from our factory bumper cover. Slide them on these 3 holes. Now we're going to slide it into place, and then we'll reinstall the factory screws. Once you have them loosely, reach in and pull off the tape we installed earlier. Press that out so it's attached. And then tighten down the screws. Then repeat the process on the other side. With the valance mounted to the bumper cover, we're ready to reinstall the bumper support. Before we can install the plastic bumper support with the wiring, we have to remove this tab here. It's actually going to get in the way of the quad tips. It clears the factory exhaust, but won't clear the quad tips we're installing. We're going to pop this clip off, cut this off, and relocate the harness. Now we're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole in here to relocate the harness. Push it back through and cut off about 3/4 of the excess. Just enough to keep it in place. Before you install the bumper support inside, you're going to install your reflectors. And reinstall the speed nuts for the reflectors. These will cut into the plastic, so they don't have to be real tight. Just get them snug. I'll reinstall our backup light. We're going to reinstall the bumper cover reinforcement, all the electrical connections. Now we're going to use the Roush supplied adapters to connect the bumper support to the new Valance. You're going to start by putting the J-clip over this hole here. Take the supplied bracket and put it between the two of them and thread it in here. Just get it hand tight for now until everything's lined up. Get that started, now we can tighten everything down. I'm going to reinstall the bumper on the car. Start by reconnecting the harness. With the bumper back in place, we're going to go underneath and reinstall the hardware we removed. With the bumper installed now, we can reinstall the taillights in our shaker before we move on to the actual exhaust install. Okay, now we have our Valance installed to our stock bumper. We're going to put the car back up in the air and install our Roush Axle-Back. The Roush is going to come with the block-off plate installed, so if you want to open it up, you do want to remove that and then install this. What we're going to do is install it with a block-off plate. We're going to give you some sound clips, then we're going to swap it out for the open element style, and we'll give you some more sound clips. You want to measure 22.54, so roughly 22.5 on one side, and 22.88, so just under 23 on the other. Because of the size and weight of the muffler used in the quad tube conversion, Roush provides an extra hanger. So what we need to do is use the template provided and drill 2 holes up here in the frame rail to mount the extra hanger. The template's the same for both sides. It's going to mount right here. What we'll do is pretty much center it and make sure this edge lines up here with the curve going over. And then we're going to punch our center holes. We're going to start with an 1/8 inch pilot hole, then use our uni bit to open it up, and finally we're going to be using a 17/32 drill bit, which is the exact size you need for this installation. I didn't have one. There's a good possibility you probably don't as well, so you do want to pick this up beforehand. Going a size bigger or smaller will not work. Since we have bare metal where these holes are, it's a good idea to grab some automotive clear coat or a little bit of primer, just clean up the holes. We're going to be installing these threaded inserts which will hold the hardware to hold up our hanger. It's going to be a really good test of your forearm strength. Basically what you do, this kit is supplied by Roush. You thread this in to the insert. You're going to put the insert in the hole we just drilled, hold this with a 17mm wrench, and then turn this bolt here, which will basically crush that down and make it tight inside the hole. What you do is once it gets tight, just thread the bolt off, the bolt nut will come off, and the insert will stay behind. The hole's done, now we can put the bracket into place, use the supplied bolts and tighten it down. With the new Roush muffler on the ground, we're going to start by installing the clamp. The clamps for the mid-pipe are specific. There are 4 smaller clamps for the tips and 2 slightly larger ones for the mid-pipe. Install that. Reinstall the original hanger here. and the new hanger back here. Now we're ready to put it up into place. We're going to start with the far back hanger, put that first up into the factory hanger, then this one here, connect the pipe, and hook this up. Reinstall the bolt through the middle hanger here. I'll go through, adjust, and tighten everything down. With everything tightened, we can install the tips. If you look on the edges of the mufflers, they actually give you lines showing the best place to align them when you put them on. Repeat the process on the other side and your installation's finished. All right, the system looks great. Let's see how it sounds with the block-off plate still in place. Definitely a deeper tone at idle. It's got a nice tone to it. It's louder than the factory exhaust, definitely not overwhelming. We'll take it for a drive, then we'll bring it back, we'll pull off the block-off plates. Getting out on the road with the Roush exhaust, the quad tips installed with the block-off plate still in, the system is pretty quiet. I mean, it's got a little bit of a deeper tone. I'd say a little more volume than stock, but not really noticeable. And honestly, that's kind of to be expected. I mean, this is a system that comes when you buy a brand new Roush from the factory. So you're dealing with a car that is sold off a showroom floor. It's not going to have a real aggressive exhaust system from the factory. That's the main reason that Roush has the block-off plate, so they can sell it and have a reasonable tone for people who want a little bit quieter. If you do want a more aggressive sound, 2 bolts, pop off the plate, and it's going to be a lot louder. I mean, it still sounds good, but unless you get it over about 3,500 RPM, it sounds pretty much like a stock exhaust at this point. We know taking off that block-off plate is going to make a huge difference. Yeah, right about, I'd say between 3 and 3,500, you start hearing a noticeable difference in the tone of the exhaust versus the stock one. Cruising speeds right now, we're at the dreaded 2,000 RPM on the highway. There's no drone, there's no nothing. I mean, you barely hear it. Sounds like a factory exhaust at this point. Still looks a hell of a lot better, but sounds exact same as a stock one. Pretty much this is what we did expect from this system. We knew that since it was a production part that comes on the factory Roushes, it wasn't going to be terribly loud from, with a block-off plate still installed. Now we're going to head back to the studio. We'll throw it back on our lift. We're going to move those plates, and we'll do this again. I think we're going to have a much different experience. We got our 15 back in the lift. Now we're going to remove the block-off plate to uncork the exhaust and hopefully get a much more aggressive sound. Simply remove these two retaining nuts. Do is just let the exhaust cool down a little bit before you do this. It can get a little bit warm. Pop the tip off and remove the plate. I'm going to throw the supplied gasket on there. Reinstall the tip. Okay, repeat the process on the other side. Let's go fire it up with the plates out. Now let's try with the plates out. Immediately, much more volume, much deeper tone, more aggressive sounding. That's the kind of sound we're used to from Roush's aftermarket exhaust. It sounds killer now. Now this is the sound I would have expected from a Roush exhaust. This has that aggressive, nice tone that we've come to get used to when talking about Roush exhaust systems. Cruising at $2,000 now. You can hear this system. It doesn't have any drone to it, nothing like that. I mean, it's definitely totally livable for daily driving, commuting, highway, whatever. But now you hear it. Now you know it's an aftermarket exhaust. It has that bite that you're used to, or we're used to, from the sound of Roush exhaust systems. Nice aggressive tone, a wide open throttle. The standard Roush Axle-Back system for the 2015 with one of our off-road, I should say not off-road, with one of our Resonated Elite X pipes, H pipes, either or, has been one of our more popular systems. A really good sound. I have to think that the quad's going to be the same way. This system sounds very similar to the standard Roush. Honestly, I think it's a little bit louder, honestly, I think it's a little bit louder than the standard Roush, but it's very close to it. I think with a Resonated Elite, it'd be even better. Yeah, really can't imagine anybody would buy this exhaust system for their 2015 and leave the plates installed. It's one of those things, if you're installing this, I would suggest probably just take them out when you're installing it, because if you're looking for any kind of aggressive sound, you're gonna be much happier with the plates out than with them installed. Got a nice tone it out, a little kind of like a deep tone, a little bit of a cam sound almost, but really good sound. I can't imagine anybody who's watching this video wouldn't agree that the quad tip conversion looks absolutely killer on our 2015 Mustang. While we did do this installation on a convertible, Roush recommends only putting this on a fastback because of the lower bracing that you do have to remove. If you're comfortable removing that like we did, you can put it on a convertible, but again, we're going to recommend this mostly for fastback use. The installation is going to be time consuming. The Axle-Back itself is pretty much business as usual with the exception of one additional hanger you have to mount. The valance itself is time consuming. You have to cut the bumper, remove it from the car. It's going to take some time, so I'd probably give yourself the better part of a day to do the entire installation, but you'll be back on the road in no time. For more installation videos for your 2015 Mustang, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out cjponyparts.com for the best selection of 2015 Mustang parts.